The July refines are finally here, and this is one of the most anticipated batches of the year. There are a lot of characters we have been waiting for a very long time. But let's jump straight into it and see if these units can live up to the hype. Let's start off with the big one of the batch, Legendary Chrom. I've been waiting for this refine forever, a lot of people have. So let's start at the top. We have effect against flying and armored. We have attack +3. We have if foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75%, we get attack and defense -6 on the foe, and we neutralize our penalties. So not much of a big change in the base effect of the weapon, pretty much just making it a little bit of an easier condition to get those effects, but other than that, nothing big. Let's jump into the actual refine itself. If Chrom initiates combat or is within 2 space of an ally, he gets attack, speed, defense, and resistance plus X during combat. X equals the number of bonuses and penalties on Chrom times 2 plus 4. So this is an effect very similar to Brave Chrom, right? Where you can essentially just have lots of different effects on you, all those visible bonuses, not stat bonuses, right? Like not the +6 attack, but like things like, so effects like visible no follow-up or something like that, right? All those little effects will give Legendary Chrom stat bonuses. And then also, if he has a bonus active on himself, which he typically will, he'll get a guaranteed follow-up attack, and he gets damage reduction against the foe's first attack by 30%. Now before we talk about just how good this refine is, let's talk about To Change Fate 2 to get a full picture of his total upgrade. So we have To Change Fate 2, and essentially this is the same thing. It's a reposition that grants Chrom another action, but he also gets attack and defense and bonus doubler to himself and his pair-up cohort. So this is pretty interesting, and in total, when we look at his full kit now, we can kind of see what Chrom's going for, and essentially he's just a giant stat ball. Essentially what this refine does is it just makes him a little bit easier to get those stats stacking, right? So he's gonna be able to change fate, get the visible attack and defense +6 and bonus doubler, so he's effectively getting a 12 attack and defense. And then depending on all these other bonuses he has, he just gets way more stats, right? If you've played with Brave Chrom before and you've played him with like Asker or like some other support units, you can see just how crazy the amount of stats you can really get with an effect like this. So what this is gonna allow Legendary Chrom to do is just stack a billion stats and just hit really, really hard. Now, he did get a guaranteed follow-up attack, which I think he does need because his speed isn't the best. But at the same time, guaranteed follow attacks are pretty weak to like Hardy Fighter, right? As it has like defensive no follow-up, which will cancel that out. The cool thing is though, he did get damage reduction. And while this might not seem like the biggest deal, a lot of times nowadays, you tack into a unit and they retaliate and they just one-shot you. So having that 30% damage reduction is really nice, and it will open up Chrom's A slot for more flexible options, right? You can go for like attack speed Hexblade and try to get some adaptive damage in there. You could also go for like a finish skill so you can get some extra true damage and healing, which is really synergistic with his overall bulk. Overall, I think this refine is good, but not amazing, right? It doesn't have everything Chrom really wants. It didn't really turn him into a very powerful support unit, as he isn't able to give like bonus doubler to his allies or even visible bonuses, which kind of sucks. But it also didn't really make him into like an amazing nuke either, as he doesn't have like slaying or some really way to have a reliable like Deadeye proc, right? So I think this is a good refine, and I think this definitely makes Chrom better overall, but I don't think this puts him like at the top of the meta in any position, right? As a support unit or as a nuke. Now, when it comes to some ideas I have for builds, I would definitely go for like something like attack speed finish. I think you still do want to stack a decent amount of speed on Legendary Chrom, even though he isn't the fastest unit. And the reason for that is that you're going to want no follow-up from an outside source. That's just what you're going to be going for. And the reason for that is because of Hardy Fighter, right? The meta revolves around Hardy Fighter on Ether Raid's defense and in Summer Duels a lot of times. So you're going to want no follow-up. Fortunately, it is pretty easy to get. Like, you can get it pretty easily from like Guidance 4 or like Infantry No Follow-up or something like that. So it's not the biggest deal. And the other thing to consider though is even though like Chrom's visible speed isn't the best, you can get something like a speed bonus on him, right? Like from an ally. And what that will do is it will get doubled. So you'll get 6 from the visible buff, and then you'll get another 6 from the bonus doubler. So that's already plus 12 speed. And then if you start to get all these bonuses and penalties on him, his actual refine gives him a ton of speed as well, right? You can easily get like 10 speed from his refine. So he's actually like not terribly slow. He's definitely gonna be fast enough to where he can like double most armors with no follow-up. So that's definitely something to consider. To me, the real question is like, how do you want to get damage reduction piercing, right? Do you want to like try to rely on Deadeye, or do you want to go for like Special Spiral 4? And I think that's gonna require some testing to know exactly which one is better. Him not having slaying makes it bit rough for him to have reliable Deadeyes, because you essentially need to get 3 cooldown on the first hit, right? So you're gonna need like Times Pulse and then like a blade effect or something to really get Deadeye, and even then Guard can shut that down. So it might be better that we go for like Special Spiral 4 and run like a Ruptured Sky with Times Pulse. That might be a good option. The other option, of course, is that we could run physical no follow-up. That actually could work on him as well, because he does want no follow-up, and then he also could just, reduce damage reduction by half. I don't think it's going to be quite as strong on him as it would be on like someone like Legendary Shez, but it is an option we can run for Chrom. Overall, I do think this is a good refine and remix for Chrom. It's definitely going to make him much more powerful, and he, in the right hands with the right build, I think he definitely can lay some big damage down, but this isn't going to transform it into like a top tier nuke, and I still think Duo Chrom is probably better overall. Okay, let's move on to our next blue units. Let's talk about Perceval. So we have Prize Lance, we have Slaying. If unit initiates combat or foe's HP is greater than 75%, he gets plus 4 to all stats, and he inflicts guard. So not much of a change here, just makes it a little bit easier for him to get those two conditions. But then we jump into his Refine. At start of combat, if his HP is greater than 25%, he gets another plus 4 to all stats. He gets 15% true damage based off his speed, not using AoEs, and he gets full no follow, and he gets the negate guard. So how good is this Refine really? Well, I think the one thing you have to compare it to is Arcane Lewin itself. I think Arcane Lewin is by far the best arcane weapon we've gotten. It's just so very powerful. And this weapon's very similar, right? You're essentially trading a bit of true damage and low speed defense on Arcane Lewin for anti-guard and guard with Prize Lance. And I don't think that's like the worst trade. I don't know if it's necessarily better, but I don't think it's necessarily worse either. I think it just depends on what you're trying to do, right? If you're trying to go for like Gale Force, I do think Prize Lance is better. The anti-guard really lets you get that cooldown in so you can really proc those Gale Forces reliably, which is really nice. Now, if you're going for pure damage, obviously you're going to want to go for Arcane Lewin, as you're not only going to get a bit more true damage, but you're also going to get low speed defense, which is going to allow you to win those speed checks a little bit easier and also get past like any visible defense bonuses. Overall, I think this is actually a very solid refine. It makes Perceval have a little niche and able to do pretty well in combat, so I don't think this is bad by any means. Pretty solid overall, definitely better than what I thought he would get. Next, let's talk about Gerik. Now, Gerik actually got a really interesting refine, so let's go over this. So at start of turn 1, he's going to grant special cooldown -1 to himself and allies with HP less than his HP. So essentially this is infantry pulse, but it also affects him as well, which is pretty cool. And then at start of turn, he's also going to give a visible attack and speed +6 to himself and all allies with less HP than him. He's going to give them an effect that neutralizes their penalties during combat, so that same effect that like Peony has on her dance. And then he's also going to give no panic to them as well. So this is pretty good, right? This is a nice plethora of support effects. It's going to make them like, it's going to make your allies like pretty much debuff proof, while also giving them that bonus to attack and speed, while also lowering their cooldown. So this is actually pretty nice for a supportive package. And then at start of combat, if his HP is greater than or equal to 25%, he's also going to get plus 4 to all stats during combat, which is pretty solid. You're going to want to see that in pretty much every refine nowadays. And then we get to his actual refine, and if he's within 3 spaces of an ally, he gets attack, speed, defense, and resistance plus X. X equaling 4 plus the highest bonus on each stat between unit and allies within 3 spaces. So this is pretty good. This is actually really solid because remember, he's going to be giving out attack and speed +6 to himself and allies, meaning typically this is going to equal about 10. So at the very least, you're going to get 10 attack and speed from just, Gerik himself, and then you can easily, supply the 6 defense and resistance from someone else. So that's +10 to all stats, and when you include his base weapon, that's +14 to all stats, which is really, really solid. That's very, very good. Then you'll also get 30% damage reduction against the first attack, and most importantly, you get anti-guard as well. So this is a very interesting refine. It seems that they're going for like a support Omni Axe, tank kind of unit, which is really interesting because we have seen nukes kind of gravitate towards having 2 roles, right? Having that support role and the nuking role, and they seem to be doing that now with Gerik as an Omni tank, which is interesting. Now, I'm not sure exactly how effective this will be overall, and the reason for that is, right, he doesn't have Slaying, and while he does have Infantry Pulse, it's not quite the same, right? And the reason for that is that you really want Slaying so that you can have, Times Pulse or this Infantry Pulse effect get Vital Astra down to 0, and that way you have Vital Astra up, so that way you can like get that damage reduction from Vital Astra. So I think that is a bit of a hindrance. You can run Times Pulse in his C slot and kind of have the same effect. The problem is that if he wants to recharge it, he has to hit twice in combat, right? To actually recharge Vital Astra, which he is going to want up at the beginning of every combat. So I think that is a bit of a weakness. The other thing I would consider is that like when it comes to Infantry Pulse, typically you want that on Ether Raid's defense. That's like the position where you typically use that at, right? You want to charge up specials and get some like big damage in on that. And then if on Ether Raid's offense, you can use it, but it's more for a Gale Force build. So I think that Gerik could be a Gale Forcer. He could definitely do that, right? You could run something like, he has Self-Infantry Pulse, will put his cooldown at 4. You could run Times Pulse and then run like Asker and then get his cooldown down to 2 and make his Gale Force very consistent. So I think that is an option he could run. Not exactly sure where Gerik goes, I guess is the kind of problem I have with him. He kind of fits into like all the roles, but not like perfectly. He's kind of like a jack of all trades, which is interesting. So I think this is a pretty solid refine overall. Definitely makes Gerik extremely unique. There's really no other axe unit quite like this, so I think that's pretty cool, and I think Gerik's going to be pretty strong overall. Definitely a very solid refine. Now let's talk about the biggest disappointment of the night, and maybe of the year for me. If you don't know, I am a massive Ross fan. Ross is one of my favorite characters in all of Fire Emblem. And man, this refine is terrible. So let's jump into it. Father's Son Axe. You get inflict speed -5, and you get a dual phase brave weapon. Okay, I mean, that's not bad, right? That's okay. There's no stats on the weapon. There's no slaying on the weapon. There's nothing else. You just get a dual phase brave weapon. That's okay-ish. Then we look at the actual refine. If Ross initiates combat or is within 2 spaces of an ally, he inflicts attack and defense -5 on the foe during combat, and he deals damage equal to 15% of units' HP at start of combat, including with AoEs, and then he restores 7 HP after combat. So this is bad. I'm just going to be honest, it's not great. And the reason for that is that it's very anti-synergistic with all of the roles you'd want to use this weapon in. So what do I mean by that? Typically, when you see a brave weapon, one of the first things you're going to think of is Vantage, right? Vantage is amazing with brave weapons. It lets you secure kills really easy, lets you blow things up. The problem is that Ross's true damage is based off his HP, meaning if you lower his HP down to that 75% to activate Vantage, you are doing less true damage. And then he also heals after combat, meaning he'll heal out of Vantage range and get killed. So that's already really bad. The second thing is that there are just not many stats on this weapon. You're getting attack and defense -5, and that's literally it. That is absolutely archaic nowadays for refines, right? Refines typically, like look at Gerik. Gerik got +14 to all stats. Ross is effectively only getting attack, defense, and resistance +5, and he's losing 5 speed. Like that is so ridiculously bad. I can't even explain how bad that is. The other thing is that the true damage is based off his HP at the start of combat, right? So that means like if Ross takes damage and then doesn't recover enough, then he's not getting max true damage anymore, right? And even then, the true damage is not that much, right? Even if you stack him with mythic buffs, at the most you're getting 15 true damage per hit, which is really solid, but that's at the very best condition, right? That's like you with 99 HP essentially, which is just unrealistic in most situations. This is just so bad. Also, the healing isn't great. It's only 7 HP after combat. It could have been saving the HP per hit to make it more consistent. They could have done that. They could have given more stats. They could have made the true damage more consistent. They could have done a million things to just make Ross better. I think this refine's just kind of crap. Is it unusable? No. You can definitely make it work. Possibly, maybe you could run like a quick repose 4 build, which will give him some damage reduction, also let him a quad. Maybe you put a finish skill on him so he gets more healing and some true damage. There's no slaying though, so you can't even like proc specials consistently. So it's very, very, very underwhelming. I'm very disappointed. This is the refine I was looking forward to probably the most this year, just because I love Ross that much. Maybe second most, but I mean, Altina definitely was most, so like maybe second most. But even so, like it's very not great. So I think you're just better off probably running like Arcane Downfall. You could probably make a better build with that. Or if you're in my position, I'm probably gonna wait for the second Arcane Axe to come out. I think it will be more of like a speedy axe build. And even though Ross isn't like the fastest, I think I could like kind of speed stack him and make it work. I don't know. I'm gonna wait until that comes out and then see which one's better between the two, and then pick that arcane weapon for Ross. I just don't think this weapon's very good, to be honest. It's like a refine you would see like maybe a year or maybe a year and a half ago. Probably even more than that. Think about that. We got Harsh Refine a year ago, and it was a Brave Axe, just like this, dual phase Brave Axe, and it had 15% flat damage reduction, right? Like that's insanely better. So I don't know what they did to Ross. They must hate Ross because this refine is garbage and is easily the worst of the batch. Next, let's talk about Kempf. So Kempf has always been in an interesting position with this weapon where he can kind of just be an annoyance, right? That's pretty much what he does. He comes in, he hits you, probably doesn't kill you, but he does some damage, then he does some damage after combat and applies flash, which then allows his allies to come and kill you. And pretty much he's going to be doing the exact same thing with his Refine. He did get some more stats, right? He's going to get plus $4 stats on his base weapon. And then when we get to his actual Refine, he gets an effect where essentially if he's almost solo, right, as long as he only has one ally next to him, he'll get plus 4 more doll stats. He gets 30% damage reduction against the foe's first attack. And then also he inflicts Discord on target and foes within 2 spaces after combat. Now, if you don't know what Discord does, essentially it applies a debuff based off of how many allies are around that foe, right? So if they have a whole bunch of friends around them, they get weaker, which I think is kind of hilarious. Like, it kind of very much fits Kempf's playstyle, so I think that's kind of cool. Overall, I think this Refine is decent. It's not bad. It definitely like makes Kempf better at what he wanted to do, which is just pretty much be an annoyance, right? So I think this isn't bad. I don't think this is gonna be meta breaking. I don't think this is gonna bring Kempf like back into the meta by any means. I definitely think he's usable, and if you want a unit who's going to piss people off, I mean, Kempf is definitely going to fulfill that role. Okay, let's talk about our dragon of the batch. That's going to be Duo Idunn. So we have effective against armor foes, just like before. We have resistance plus 3. If a bonus is active on the unit or the unit is within 2 spaces of an ally, she's going to inflict attack minus 6 on the foe, speed, defense, and resistance minus 4 on the foe, neutralize her own penalties, and she'll deny follow-up attacks. So pretty much very similar to her base weapon, just with a few more stats attached to there. I don't know why they didn't just make it so that she inflicts attack, like all stats minus 6 instead of just attack. I don't think it would have been broken, so whatever. Then we go to her actual Refine, and if the foe initiates combat or the foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75%, she's going to inflict minus 4 to all stats on the foe. She's going to reduce damage from foe's first attack by 5. So that's flat damage reduction, but it's only 5. So that's kind of okay. And then she's going to heal herself for 7 HP after combat. And then also, if her resistance is greater than the foe's resistance, she's going to get Dragon Wall. So I think this Refine's pretty solid. It's very similar to like Nagi's almost, but I think it's a little bit worse. But getting all those stats definitely helps. Follow-up denial is really nice, but she kind of already had that, right? So when it comes to the actual Refine, the 5 flat damage reduction, I don't think is the biggest deal. It's not even against all attacks, it's only against the first attack. I mean, it will help a little bit, but it's not going to be like a big game changer in my opinion. And the healing is also not as good as Nagi's, right? It's not healing per hit, it's healing 1 7 HP heal after combat. I think the big thing that really helps Duo Idunn here is the Dragon Wall. Anytime you can have Dragon Wall in your weapon means that your B slot is open, and that's a very big deal for armor units because that means you can use fighter skills. And there's a lot of good fighter skills nowadays. Now, when it comes to like saves, typically what you're going to be going for is Hardy Fighter, and I think that probably will be her best build, as it will allow her to have some damage reduction that can't be pierced on top of that 5, right? And then she'll also have Dragon Wall though, which will help her against like AoEs and just normal damage. So I think overall she got a pretty solid Refine. I don't think this is going to push her up to like the top of the save meta by any means. She definitely is no Bridal Tiki, but even so, I think this is going to be a pretty solid Refine. And if you put something like Scout in her A slot and then like Hardy Fighter in her B slot, and then maybe, I don't know, Distant Counter in her Steel slot, she'll do pretty well. You could even go for like one of the armor specials, like Armored Flow, and then go for a different fighter build. But either way, I think Duo Idunn's gonna be a pretty solid save unit with this Refine. Okay, I saved the best for last. You knew it was coming. Here it is, Brammimond's Refine and Remix. Okay, so we have Void Totem, and it's pretty much the same as before. You get attack plus 3 if their attack is greater than or equal to 50, or if there's a penalty, you're going to get plus 5 attack, defense, and res. And then if their speed is greater than or equal to 35, or a penalty, you'll get a guaranteed follow-up attack. So pretty much exactly the same, right, as before. There's nothing really different here. Not a big surprise. But then we go to the Refine, and the Refine is long and powerful. So we have at start of combat, if the foe's HP is greater than 50%, you get plus $4 stats. So if they're healthy, you get more stats. Now this is the cool part. If the foe has a special skill and that foe's max special cooldown is reduced, grants -1 special cooldown to Brammimond before his first attack. This is interesting. So essentially what it's saying is like if the foe has slaying, you get slaying, right? It's not exactly slaying. It's not as good as slaying, I would say, but it does give -1 special cooldown, which isn't affected by guard. So that's pretty cool, and it's going to allow Brammimond to hit like a Ruptured Sky, right, or something like that pretty effectively, especially if you are running Tempo in his B slot. So I think that's a pretty cool effect. Then also you have if foe's attack is greater than 50, which is pretty much standard nowadays, you're going to get 15% true damage based off their attack. So the more powerful they are, the more true damage you're getting, which is insane. And then at start of combat, if their defense or res is greater than or equal to 35, or if they have a bonus active on them, you're going to get damage reduction based off their defense or resistance, whichever is higher. And then you can get up to 50% damage reduction from this. This is a very, very cool weapon. Essentially what they did is took Brammimond's like niche of like being a mirror and being able to like kind of reflect whatever the opponent does back at them. I think that's so cool, right? They're fast, you get a guaranteed follow-up attack. They're healthy, you get more stats. They have slaying, now you get slay. They got a lot of attack, you get true damage, right? They're super bulky, you get damage reduction. It's so cool and it's so thematic and I love it. It's so awesome. But in order to fully understand Brammimond's like full power now, we have to look at his remix preference skill as well. So we have Impenetrable Void, disable skills of all foes excluding foe in combat. You get to inflict -$5 stats on the foe, and you get to reduce the percentage of the foe's damage reduction by 50% during combat. So essentially what you're getting is you're getting the Omni Feud effect, right? You're getting like the effect that Emblem has, or like just the base effect that Brammimond has always had. You're getting -$5 stats, so it's effectively plus $5 stats for Brammimond, which is really nice. And then you're also getting just, having their damage reduction. So I wouldn't say this is good as like Special Spiral 4, right? You're not getting the pierce to damage reduction, but even so, being able to half it is really nice, especially if you're using Brammimond on something like a Catcher Ball where you're going to be able to hit twice immediately. You're going to hit really hard. Okay, so when it comes to Brammimond's complete remix and refine, what do I think? I think this is actually a very solid remix. I don't know if it's the most powerful remix we've ever gotten, probably not, but it's very, very interesting, and I think it has a lot of potential to be quite strong, right? Brammimond's getting a lot of stats that are going to help him out. His speed's actually like quite usable now, so that means like if you have like no follow-up or offensive no follow-up on your defense team, they're going to be able to like hit pretty decently hard. If you're using Tempo in the B slot, you're going to be able to reliably proc specials, which is really nice. You have 15% true damage, right, which is powerful. That's going to allow Brammimond to hit really hard. And then that damage reduction actually is something you really can't underestimate, because a lot of like Omni tanks and save units don't have a way to pierce damage reduction, right? There aren't that many. It's like Byleth and like a couple others, and that's pretty much it. So typically what that means is that Brammimond's going to come in, smack you really hard, and then survive. And then if you don't have like a way to stop their follow-up, Brammimond's going to hit you again really hard. And if you use them on a Catcher Ball, which you typically will, that's kind of the meta defense right now, Brammimond's going to hit you twice really hard, then survive, and then probably hit you twice hard again and probably kill you. So I think Brammimond's actually got like some major props here. I think their upgrade is just completely like a massive upgrade, definitely way stronger than it might seem. You cannot underestimate that Feud effect. Feud is so ridiculously strong, especially with Fallen Marias running around. Being able to just turn that off, or turn off like damage reduction from Elamine or Flame or whoever, is going to just allow Brammimond to hit really hard and just do a ton of damage. So I think Brammimond definitely just came out and like overperformed here. Definitely an amazing refine and remix. I think they're definitely usable on defense now and a great option. Okay, let's jump into the final part of the video. Let's talk about the July Refine tier list and where I think these units land. So at the very top, to no one's surprise, is going to be Brammimond. I think Brammimond got a great remix, definitely easiest of the batch, and I think it's definitely going to be a meta refine to an extent. I don't think it's going to be like a dominant meta refine where you're going to see Brammimond literally everywhere. I think anyone who wants to invest into Brammimond will definitely get their money's worth. They're going to put in a ton of work, and I think that they're a great option as a mythic now. Under that in A slot, I'm going to have Gerik and Duo Idunn. I think Gerik just got a really unique and cool refine, and with all those stats, you can definitely make use of him as a God Sword. Duo Idunn, same thing, pretty solid refine, just going to make her better as a save and give her a ton more options so that she can really make sure that she doesn't die to like pre-charge specials, right? You can run like that Scowl, and then you have Dragon Ball to protect from AoEs, and then you also have Hardy Fighter or something like that, right? Like it's going to work out. I think she's going to be pretty solid. In B tier, we're going to have Legendary Chrom. I don't think Legendary Chrom's refine is bad by any means. It's definitely good, right? You can definitely make use of it, and I think if you heavily invest into Legendary Chrom, he's gonna put in the work, right? The thing is that Chrom was already a very good unit. Just having to change fate makes him a great legendary unit, and having all this stuff on top of him makes him better. I just think the refine itself isn't like game changing, right? It doesn't like take Legendary Chrom and like put him up there with Duo Chrom or some of the other amazing nukes or support units. So for me, it's gonna be a B tier refine. And that's the same thing kind of with Perceval, where like Arcane Lewin kind of does almost the same exact stuff as his weapon. It's just kind of a side grade. So I think it's a solid refine, B tier for him. Same with Kempf. Kempf just got a nice little upgrade, making him more annoying and giving him those stats. And then lastly in C tier, we have Ross, which literally, you have no idea how much this hurts me to put Ross. When I was making this asset before the recording the video, I had him in S tier because I'm like, Ross is gonna do it. I'm gonna speak it into the world. Did not work at all. Ross is down in C tier, unfortunately, which makes me extremely sad. Okay, now I'd love to hear from you. What do you think of this refined batch? Who do you think got the best refine, and who do you plan on refining? Are you going to be refining Legendary Chrom, Brammimond, or maybe one of your other favorite units? I'd love to hear about it, so make sure to drop a comment down below letting me know exactly who you'll be refining and what kind of builds you'll be running. As always, I'd like to thank my members for all their constant support, and if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. This has been Oblivion. I'll catch you later.